So today we're going to be looking at the structure of the eye, and the eye is obviously an amazing structure which enables us to be able to see the environment around us. And we're going to go through some of the key components of the eye, see how they work and transfer, to convert this light information into an image that we're able to see all the time. So I brought up two views of the eye. One is the one we're most familiar with, this view from the front. And then also here on the right hand side, we have a cross section of the eye, a quick diagram of a cross section, which is really looking through a slice of the eye, like this. And we'll go through all the different structures we can see, and also the different structures which light passes through on its way through the eye. So first, if we look at this image on the left hand side, and starting from the middle, you probably know quite well that in the middle we have the pupil, and the pupil is really less of a structure, but more a result of the surrounding structure being the iris. And the iris is this colored part of the eye. It's different colors for different people just due to the different type of pigment. But the key function of the iris is to control the size of the pupil. And it does this by using pairs of muscles to either constrict the pupil and make it smaller, or dilate the pupil to make it lighter. And this is important because that helps us to be able to control the amount of light that enters the eye. So if we're outside on a bright sunny day, the muscles in the iris will work together to constrict the pupil so that less light is entering the eye. However, if we were in a really dark room, then the muscles in the iris would work together to dilate the pupil, thereby letting more light into the eye. And this is really important because it actually helps the eye to control the amount of light information that is entering, and thereby protects the rest of the structures from that light. So what else can we see on the front? We've also got the white part of the eye, which is the sclera. And from the front, it looks like the sclera only takes up a small part, but really the sclera covers the whole of the eyeball. So all of this part going around the back is covered by the sclera. The only part which isn't is this part of the front through which we can see the iris. And the sclera's main role is really to maintain the structural integrity of the eye. A very thin layer overlying the sclera is called the conjunctiva, and the conjunctiva has a protective role, and it also contributes to tear formation, though less so than the lacrimal gland, which produces most of the tears. But the conjunctiva also contributes, and so it runs over the top of the sclera, but it also runs underneath the eyelid, so it's continuous with the underneath of the eyelid. And then finally on the front we have a transparent structure called the cornea, and the cornea overlies this area through which we can see the iris, and its key function is to allow light into the eye. It also serves a protective role, and we'll discuss a little bit more about how light is affected by passing through the cornea in a minute. So if we whiz over to this side and have a look at this cross section of the eye, we can identify some of the same structures that we can see from the front. The first would be the cornea, which is this structure at the very front of the eye. We can also see parts of the iris, and again, if we imagine that we're making this cross section, we can sort of not see the iris as a continuous structure, but that there's these two parts which in 360 degrees would make up a ring through which it would be the pupil. So we have the components of the iris. What else can we see? Can't really see the sclera, though the sclera does run all the way around the back of the eye. We also have a thin conjunctival layer, which is continuous with the eyelid. The conjunctiva doesn't run over the cornea. And then if we now imagine that we have a ray of light passing through the eye, we'll have a look at some of the other structures that we're going to meet on the way. So if we imagine the light coming in like this, we first come to the cornea, then passes through this chamber, which is filled with fluid, before it reaches the next really important structure, which is the lens. And the lens is a really unique structure in that it helps us to be able to maintain really clear vision if everything's working well. And it does this by changing shape depending on our surroundings. So if we imagine that we're looking at an object really far away, the lens's shape will be a little bit like it is at the moment, this sort of elongated oval shape. But if we change our gaze to something much closer, the lens is able to adapt its shape to make sure that we're also able to see the close-up object clearly. And it does this very, very quickly, just as we move between, looking around the room. We're able to maintain really clear vision. It doesn't matter what we're looking at. And the key structures which enable the lens to do this are the ciliary muscle and the suspensory ligaments. And the ciliary muscle is this little area over here, which connects to the suspensory ligaments, which then hold the lens in place. And it's the contraction of this ciliary muscle which is responsible for changing the shape of the lens. So we've had a look at the lens, and if we imagine that our light ray continues passing through the lens, it then goes through this chamber at the back of the eye, which is also filled with fluid, before it comes to the back. And at the back, it meets a very, very important structure called the retina. And the retina contains very, very specialized cells, photoreceptors, which are able to convert this light information that has entered the eye. They're able to absorb that light and convert it into a neurological signal. And there are thousands of photoreceptors in the retina, and they all send information across the retina to a structure which exits at the back of the eye, and this structure is the optic nerve. And all this sort of neurological information exits the eye through the optic nerve, where it goes on towards other parts of our brain, where the brain is then able to process that information and convert it into an image. I very quickly also just wanted to show you what the retina looks like, because you're able, if you use a very bright light and a magnifying piece, you're able to look into the eye through the pupil, which was this little window, through the lens, and we're able to visualize the back of the retina, which looks like this. You can see there are lots of blood vessels running across the back of the retina, and there's also this structure here, which I just wanted to highlight, because that's where the optic nerve leaves the eye. So that just gives you an idea of what the retina looks like. So hopefully that was a helpful introduction to some of the structures of the eye. We didn't manage to cover some of the other functions of the eye, including how how light rays refract through different structures of the eye, or in fact how some people need to wear glasses and aren't able to see objects clearly far away or close up. But we'll be able to cover that in another lesson. So hopefully this was a helpful introduction, and we'll be able to build on our learning from here.